We continue on the Common Sense Club and the Scott Innes Show, chatting with the author of Known and Unknown, a memoir that's out in paperback now. The chapter on 9/11 available at his website, rumsfeld.com, so check that out. Former Secretary of Defense Don Rumsfeld with us on the program. We're looking back at 9/11, 11 years later. New York Times, I don't know if you saw this or not, ran a story yesterday entitled "The Deafness Before the Storm," and opportunity to attack the Bush administration as having missed the intelligence signals based on an August 6, 2001 classified review in a presidential daily brief about the threats from al-Qaeda and the plans for 9/11. What do you say in response to that?
Well, Scott, I canceled my subscription to the New York Times some years ago when I found their reporting to be subpar, if you want an understatement. Yesterday, I talked to the former National Security Advisor, Steve Hadley, about the report that I'd seen on the Internet. And he said to me that he reminded me that something I'd known, and that is that the 9/11 Commission, after the attacks of 9/11, the president created a commission, bipartisan Republicans and Democrats, of former officials and knowledgeable people, and they spent weeks and weeks and weeks studying all the classified and unclassified information and came to a notably different decision. Why the New York Times would run that and play it up, I guess it actually came from Vanity Fair originally, someone said, one of the world's leading journals on foreign policy.
Speaking of presidential daily briefs, Mark Thiessen has unearthed some information that President Obama has only attended about 38% of his presidential daily briefings on intelligence matters in the back half of the administration. 44% if you take the whole administration, 38% in the back half. They've said, well, he reads it, so what's the big deal? Is that are folks right to be outraged that he's missing that many of his presidential daily briefings?
Well, if he's played golf 90 times and not been able to invest the kind of time it takes to be knowledgeable about foreign policy and defense policy and intelligence matters, I think it suggests something about his priorities.
Might it also connect to the current situation with the attacks yesterday in Egypt and Libya on the anniversary of 9/11, no less? And I'm curious of what you thought when you saw the response from the United States, first from the embassy and then from Hillary Clinton. The embassy put out a statement saying, "We condemn the continuing efforts by misguided individuals to hurt the religious feelings of Muslims." It's no kidding. The religious feelings of Muslims. Hillary Clinton's statement.
I think it was, first of all, it was of a kind of this administration, and it was disgraceful. In leadership, if you decide you want to be loved, either have our country loved or be loved personally as president, you behave in a certain way. If you decide that it's important for the United States to be respected, you behave in a distinctly different way. And it is pretty clear to me that the signal that's gone out around the world is a signal of decline and weakness during the 3.5 years of this administration. He went on his apology tour. He tried to have people like him, and he bowed and scraped. And the reality is that I would guess the prestige, the respect for the United States today is lower than it's been in many, many years. You don't see these kinds of things happening unless the people engaging in them are pretty darn sure that there's no penalty for it. And I'm deeply disturbed. If you had to say, what do you worry about most when you go to bed, I would have to say I worry about American weakness. There's going to be leadership in the world, and to the extent we withdraw and we behave in a way with respect to our budgets that it shows we're modeling ourselves after Europe and a failed system, and if we talk about cutting another $500 billion out of the defense budget over the next decade, and it tells the world that the United States is not going to be able to contribute to peace and stability, and as a result, countries need not be concerned about us. We can ask them to do things, and they won't do them. If we leak things out of the White House, what happens? other countries' intelligence services aren't going to want to deal with this. Why would they deal with some country that can't manage the hemorrhaging of classified information out of the White House? It's dangerous.
Mitt Romney, it is dangerous. I agree with you, and that's the consequence of this kind of policy. Now, Mitt Romney, I heard the same thing you did. Their statement, put out a statement, said this is ridiculous. Condemn this violence, and I can't believe you put it out. He's been being roundly criticized for politicizing, a foreign policy a situation. Was Mitt Romney wrong to push back on the statement I read to you?
Absolutely not. It was a responsible thing to do. The American people have a couple of months left to decide who they want to help guide and direct the course of this country. And as issues come up, they're inevitably going to be discussed and debated, and it's important for the American people to know where the president and where the candidate opposing the president, competing against him in the nomination process, in the election process, where they both stand.
Also, the situation in Libya, we're now told the attack on the consulate there that killed Ambassador Chris Stevens, reporting suggests was planned by attackers who used the protest outside the consulate as a diversion. And the sources could not say whether the attackers instigated the protest or merely took advantage of it. They say they don't believe Stevens was specifically targeted, but he and 3 other Americans suffocated trying to escape a fire after a grenade was thrown into the building. London terror analysts speculated that Stevens was the victim of a targeted al-Qaeda revenge attack, coming to avenge the death of al-Libya, second in command of al-Qaeda, killed a few months ago. What's your reaction to that?
I don't have any intelligence information that would enable me to add any dimension to what you're saying. I'll repeat. I do think that when the world sees adults in the White House modeling our country's economic circumstance after Europe, which is a failed model, and when they see us thrashing our defense budgets, it is a signal to the world that the United States is turning away, and I can assure you that the leadership vacuum that we've left is going to be filled, and it's going to be filled by countries that are not going to have our interests and our values as their principal goals in life.
Should we be apologizing for some YouTube movie? I mean, what is the idea here? We got to rush out to apologize for free speech.
Well, I think, it gets to be a knee-jerk reaction. If the leader of the country does that continuously, then it's not surprising that the departments and agencies instinctively do the same thing. It's inexcusable.
Yeah. And, again, 9/11, 11 years later, prime example that this kind of behavior is not only still out there, but also that our weakness, as you say, which worries you, comes with a price, right? I mean, this would be an example of our weakness not being a concern and being noticed by enemies, correct?
Absolutely. And when in the Democratic convention, the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden, stands up there and says on nationwide, I should say worldwide television, America is not in decline. The immediate thing anyone thinks about is, well, why does he have to say that?
Yeah, he doth protest a little too much there. Well said. Great to talk to you as always, Secretary Rumsfeld. God bless you, Joyce, and the entire clan there. We appreciate it.